Carla Mendoza sits in Judge Caprio's courtroom, her hands clasped tight, her voice steady but her eyes filled with fire. What should have been a routine hearing over two simple traffic citations, failure to wear a seat belt and driving without a license in possession, is about to erupt into something far greater. When Judge Caprio asks what happened during the stop, Carla takes a breath that seems to pull the air from the entire room. Then she says 6 words that freeze everyone in place. "Your Honor, the officer wanted money." Gasps ripple through the gallery. Officer Miguel Diaz, seated quietly in the back, straightens, his jaw locked. A bribery accusation against a veteran police officer, spoken in open court, on record, under oath. What began as a traffic case has suddenly turned into a question of integrity, truth, and the reputation of law enforcement itself. For 17 years, Officer Diaz has built a spotless record. Now, in a single sentence, his career teeters on the edge. Judge Caprio's calm gaze shifts between the two. Someone is lying. The only question is who. This isn't about seat belts or paperwork anymore. It's about trust, the kind that holds an entire justice system together. If Carla is telling the truth, a man sworn to protect the public has betrayed that oath. But if she's lying, she's just attempted to destroy an innocent life. Before the day ends, one of them will walk out vindicated, and the other will face the crushing weight of their own words. If you believe truth should always win over convenience, subscribe to Real Judge Stories and comment "Truth Matters" below. Because in this courtroom, the next few minutes will decide whose story survives, and whose reputation doesn't. The tension in Judge Caprio's courtroom hangs thick, every eye fixed on the woman at the podium. Carla Mendoza, a 32-year-old nursing assistant and mother of 2, stands accused of something minor, yet she's just made a claim that could upend everything. The bailiff reads the charges in his even tone: failure to wear a seat belt and driving without her license in possession. To anyone else, these are routine citations, the kind of matters handled in minutes. But today the air feels charged, heavy with something more than traffic law. Judge Caprio adjusts his glasses and glances over the file. "Good afternoon, Ms. Mendoza," he begins in that familiar calm voice known to millions of viewers. "I see 2 violations here. Why don't you tell me what happened that day?" Carla nods. Her voice, though polite, trembles with determination. "Yes, Your Honor. It was last Thursday. I was driving my Aunt Lucia to her cardiology appointment. She's 83 and doesn't move easily. When her phone slipped to the floor, she tried to reach for it, and I leaned over to help before she hurt herself." Caprio listens carefully. "So you unbuckled your seat belt?" "Only for a few seconds," she answers. "I was just putting it back on when the lights came on behind me." The judge makes a note. The small courtroom murmurs quietly. The story seems ordinary enough, until everyone remembers what Carla said a few moments earlier. Officer Miguel Diaz sits in the back, his uniform crisp, his expression unreadable. He has heard every word and he knows what's coming next. Because this isn't only about 2 traffic tickets anymore. It's about a statement that could destroy a man's career, or expose corruption in plain sight. So before we go further, take a second. Subscribe to Real Judge Stories and leave a comment with your prediction. Who do you think is telling the truth? Now the real hearing begins. Judge Caprio leans forward slightly, resting his elbows on the bench. "Ms. Mendoza," he says evenly, "start from the beginning. Tell me, in your own words, everything that happened during that stop." Carla takes a steadying breath. "Your Honor, I was heading down Elmwood Avenue, driving carefully, helping my aunt with her seatbelt. When I saw the police lights, I pulled over right away. Officer Diaz came to my window and asked for my license and registration. I gave him the registration, but I told him I had forgotten my wallet at home. I'd switched purses that morning and left it on the counter." Caprio nods. "So you had a valid license, just not on you?" "Yes, sir. I have it now." She pulls the card from her bag and holds it up for the clerk. "I've had it for years, never any issues." The judge glances at it briefly. "All right, go on." Carla hesitates. Her voice drops lower now, her tone steady but pained. "After I explained everything, Officer Diaz said he'd have to write 2 tickets. I asked him how much they would be and he said about $300 total. I was upset but I understood. Then he leaned down toward my window, lowered his voice and said, 'We can work something out right now.'" The courtroom stirs. A faint rustle of whispers. Judge Caprio's eyes narrow slightly. "He said that exact phrase?" "Yes, Your Honor. I asked him what he meant and he said, 'You give me $100 cash and these tickets disappear.' Those were his words. I remember because I was shocked." Caprio writes quickly on the pad before him. "And what did you say?" I told him I didn't have that kind of money on me. I had maybe $40 in my purse. He looked annoyed and said, "Then I guess you're getting the tickets." Then he handed them to me and walked away. Was your aunt aware of this conversation? Carla shakes her head. No, Your Honor. She's elderly and hard of hearing. She was fiddling with her phone the whole time. I didn't tell her until later. The judge's tone sharpened slightly. Did you report this incident to anyone? The police department, internal affairs, anyone? Carla looks down. No, sir. I was scared. I didn't know what would happen if they didn't believe me. I thought maybe no one would take me seriously. So you waited until this court appearance to make the accusation? Yes, Your Honor. I didn't plan to say anything, but when I saw him here today, I just couldn't stay quiet. I needed to tell the truth. The judge studies her for a long moment. His face gives away nothing, but his tone is deliberate. You understand, Ms. Mendoza, that accusing a police officer of bribery is an extremely serious matter? It's not a simple complaint, it's a potential criminal charge. I understand completely, she says softly. But I'm telling you the truth. A silence falls over the courtroom again. In the back row, Officer Diaz's hands tighten around his folder. The bailiff glances toward him, ready to intervene if necessary. Caprio leans back, steepling his fingers. Very well, he says finally. We'll hear from the officer next. The murmurs in the gallery grow again. Carla steps back from the podium, breathing hard, her pulse visible in her neck. Her version of the story has just landed like a grenade in the middle of the courtroom, and everyone knows the next testimony could either back her claim or destroy it completely. Judge Caprio looks toward the back of the courtroom. Officer Diaz, he says calmly, please approach the podium. The officer stands, adjusts his uniform, and walks forward with deliberate composure. His steps echo faintly on the tile floor, the sound of discipline and restraint. He stops beside the microphone, his jaw tight but his voice level. Your Honor, he begins, I've been serving in the Providence Police Department for 17 years. In that time, I've never once been accused of misconduct. I take great pride in my record and my oath. What Ms. Mendoza has said here today is completely false. He pauses, glancing briefly toward Carla. She avoids his eyes. Judge Caprio gestures for him to continue. Tell me, Officer Diaz, what happened during the traffic stop from your perspective. Yes, Your Honor. I was patrolling Elmwood Avenue that Thursday afternoon around 2:30 p.m. when I observed Ms. Mendoza's vehicle. The driver was not wearing a seat belt. I activated my lights and initiated a traffic stop. When I approached the car, I saw two women inside, the driver and an older woman in the passenger seat. Neither appeared to be wearing seat belts when I first approached. He continues, his tone steady, factual. I requested her license and registration. She handed me the registration but told me she didn't have her license with her. I returned to my cruiser, ran her information through the system, and confirmed that she did have a valid license, just not in her possession. That's a separate violation. I wrote 2 standard citations and returned to her vehicle. Judge Caprio nods slowly. And what was the nature of your conversation when you returned? I explained both citations, Diaz says. I told her the seatbelt fine was $125 and the license violation was $175. She seemed upset and asked if there was anything I could do to help her. I told her I'd already written the citations and that she could explain her situation in court. That was it. I never said anything about paying me money or about making the tickets disappear. He straightens his shoulders. Your Honor, I've spent nearly 2 decades serving this city with integrity. I would never risk my badge for $100, or any amount. This accusation is not only false, it's deeply insulting. The judge studies him carefully, noting every inflection. You're confident your body camera was active during the stop? Yes, Your Honor. Our department policy requires it for all traffic stops. The footage should show the entire interaction with audio. That statement changes everything. The quiet in the courtroom sharpens into anticipation. Caprio glances toward Carla, whose hands fidget nervously. All right, he says. We'll review that footage. The room stirs with renewed tension. Both stories have been told, but only one can survive the truth that's about to appear on screen. Judge Caprio leans back in his chair, his expression thoughtful but unreadable. The quiet in the courtroom deepens. Even the shuffling of papers has stopped. All right, he says finally, here's what we're going to do. Before anyone says another word, I want to make sure we're dealing with facts, not emotions. He looks at Carla first. Ms. Mendoza, you've made a very serious allegation against Officer Diaz. You understand that if it's true, This could result in criminal charges against him. Carla nods quickly. Yes, Your Honor. I wouldn't have said it if it wasn't true. Caprio's tone remains calm but firm. And if it isn't true, if you've made this up to avoid responsibility for your citations, then you've committed a false statement before the court, which is equally serious. Do you understand that as well? Her eyes flicker downward. I understand, Your Honor. He turns to the officer. Officer Diaz, you said your body camera was active during the stop? Yes, Your Honor. It should have recorded everything from the moment I exited my cruiser. Good, Caprio replies. Can that footage be retrieved? Yes, sir. I can have my sergeant send it within the hour. Caprio nods once, decisively. Then we'll wait for it. He looks back at Carla. Ms. Mendoza, when we play this video, what will it show? Carla hesitates. It'll show what happened, Your Honor. What he said. The judge studies her closely. Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about, should you? No, Your Honor. Very well. Officer Diaz, please contact your department immediately and request that footage. We'll reconvene as soon as it arrives. Diaz gives a curt nod, steps out of the courtroom with his phone in hand. The audience murmurs softly, even the bailiff exchanges a glance with the clerk. Everyone knows this is the turning point. Judge Caprio's voice cuts through the tension. In this courtroom, evidence speaks louder than emotion. Let's see what the camera saw. The truth is now only minutes away, and the silence that follows is heavier than any verdict. 25 minutes later, Officer Diaz returns to the courtroom. The tension hasn't broken, it's only grown heavier. He steps forward and addresses the judge. Your Honor, the footage has been transmitted from the department. It's ready for viewing. Judge Caprio gestures toward the monitors. Very well. Let's all see what actually happened. The lights dim slightly as the screen flickers to life. A faint hiss of static, then clarity. Officer Diaz's body camera view fills the screen. The footage begins at 2:32 p.m., the timestamp visible in the corner. Diaz's voice plays through the speakers, clear and calm. Good afternoon, ma'am. The reason I stopped you is that I observed you were not wearing your seat belt. May I see your license and registration, please? From the camera's angle, Carla's face is visible through the driver's window. She looks nervous but polite. I'm sorry, officer. My aunt dropped her phone, and I just unbuckled for a second to pick it up. I was putting it back on when you stopped me. I understand, Diaz replies. But the vehicle was moving at the time, so you're required to be buckled. He takes her registration, then asks, and your license? Carla says, oh no, I forgot it at home. I switched purses this morning. Diaz nods. All right, I'll need your full name and date of birth. The footage shows him walking back to his cruiser, typing information into the onboard computer, and returning a few minutes later. His tone remains steady. Ms. Mendoza, I've confirmed your license is valid. I'm issuing 2 citations. One for not wearing a seat belt, one for driving without your license in possession. The seat belt fine is $125, and the license fine is $175. Carla sighs audibly. $300? Officer, can't you give me a warning? Please? Diaz's reply is firm but calm. I've already written the citations, ma'am. You can explain your situation to the judge. The information is on these forms. There's no trace of hesitation, no whisper, no suggestion of money. Only professionalism. Carla's voice wavers. Please, officer, I really can't afford this. I understand, Diaz says again. But I can't change the citation once it's written. Drive safely, ma'am. The footage ends with him returning to his cruiser. Silence fills the room as the video freezes on the final frame. Judge Caprio looks from the monitor to Carla. His voice is measured but edged with weight. Ms. Mendoza, we've just watched every second of that interaction. At no point did Officer Diaz request or suggest that you give him money. In fact, the only person who mentioned money was you. Carla's face pales. She opens her mouth, then closes it again. I must have misunderstood, she says faintly. No, Caprio replies softly but firmly. You didn't misunderstand. You fabricated. The words land like a gavel strike. The truth has spoken, not through argument but through evidence. Every head in the courtroom turns toward Carla, who now stares at the floor, trembling. Officer Diaz exhales slowly, the relief visible in his posture. Justice, clear and undeniable, has just unfolded on screen. For a long moment, no one moves. The courtroom feels suspended in time, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the monitor. Then Judge Caprio leans forward, his tone quiet but unmistakably firm. "Ms. Mendoza," he begins, "you've now seen what we've all seen. The body camera footage leaves no doubt. Officer Diaz acted with complete professionalism. There was no mention of money, no suggestion of bribery, nothing improper at all." Carla wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't realize what I was doing. I was scared, I didn't have the money for the fines." Caprio raises a hand gently, cutting her off. "Fear doesn't excuse a lie that could destroy another person's career. You looked this court in the eye and accused a police officer of corruption. That is not a misunderstanding, that is deception." He turns to Officer Diaz. "Officer, the court appreciates your patience and professionalism throughout this process. You handled yourself exactly as the public expects from those who wear the badge." Diaz nods, emotion restrained but visible. "Thank you, Your Honor." Caprio faces Carla again. "Your original fines totaled $300, $125 for the seat belt and $175 for failing to have your license in possession. Because of your false accusation, I'm adding a $500 penalty for making a false statement before the court." Carla gasps softly. "$500? That brings your total to $800, Caprio continues. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office to review for possible charges related to filing a false report. You will also write a formal, signed apology to Officer Diaz acknowledging that your claim was untrue. That document will become part of the official record." Tears spill freely down her cheeks. "Yes, Your Honor. I understand." The judge nods once, solemnly. "This court values honesty above convenience. Let today remind everyone present that a single lie can weigh heavier than any fine." The gavel falls, crisp and final, the sound of justice closing one chapter and opening its lesson to all who watched. The courtroom slowly empties. Carla sits motionless for a few seconds, still absorbing what has just happened. Officer Diaz gathers his paperwork quietly, nods respectfully toward Judge Caprio, and exits without a word. He doesn't smile, vindication doesn't feel like victory, only relief. Judge Caprio remains on the bench for a moment longer. He removes his glasses, sets them beside his notes, and looks out across the nearly empty room. His voice carries softly but firmly, the weight of experience behind each word. "Every day," he says, "this courtroom sees people who make mistakes. Some admit them, accept the consequences, and move on better for it. But lies are different. A lie doesn't just bend the truth, it poisons trust. It turns justice into suspicion and wounds the people who serve it." He glances toward the door where Carla exited. When someone falsely accuses an officer, it doesn't only threaten one career, it damages faith in every honest officer wearing that uniform. And when that happens, the real victims of misconduct have a harder time being believed. Justice depends on truth. It cannot survive without it. He gathers his files, the echo of his words hanging in the air like the quiet toll of a bell. Outside, the city moves on as if nothing happened. But inside that small courtroom, a lesson has been carved in stone. Truth is not always convenient, but it's always necessary. And that is the verdict that will outlast the day. Judge Caprio rises from his chair, his expression calm yet resolute. "Justice," he says, "isn't about punishment, it's about truth. The truth protects the innocent, humbles the guilty, and keeps the system standing." He gives one last look at the courtroom before stepping through the side door, the sound of his footsteps fading into the hallway. If you believe truth should never be for sale, subscribe to Real Judge Stories and comment below. Truth always wins. Because every courtroom has two sides, but only one truth. And here with Judge Caprio, that truth always finds its way to light.